Imagine waking up one day and realizing that the life you've built, the roles you play, the goals you chase, the person you present to the world, is not truly yours. Imagine seeing yourself in the mirror and questioning whether anything behind your eyes is authentically you, or if it's all just a carefully constructed performance. A life lived not for yourself, but for an audience that never asked for a show. You wake up with everything society tells you should bring happiness, success, relationships, stability, and yet, there's a hollow ache beneath it all, a quiet, persistent emptiness that no achievement can fill. Ask yourself this: who would you be if no one was watching? If you could erase every expectation, every fear of judgment, every pressure to conform, what version of yourself would remain? Would you recognize them? Or have you become so accustomed to wearing masks that removing them feels like losing your identity altogether? You were taught that control is strength, that planning leads to fulfillment, that approval equals worth. But what if those beliefs are illusions? What if the harder you try to control your life, the more trapped you become? What if seeking validation only distances you from who you truly are? Think about how many choices you've made, not because they aligned with your deepest desires, but because they were safe, acceptable, expected. How many times have you silenced your voice to fit into someone else's narrative? And now, after years of playing this role, do you even remember who you were before the script was written? Here lies the paradox. You spend your life trying to build security, yet you feel less free than ever. You seek peace through control, but instead, you find anxiety. You chase success, yet fulfillment remains elusive. You surround yourself with people, but loneliness lingers. You follow the path laid out for you, only to realize that at some point, you stopped asking whether you wanted to walk it at all. This is not just a personal struggle. It is a universal condition. We are raised to believe that self-worth comes from external validation, that happiness is earned through achievement, that conformity is safety. But what if all of this is a trap? What if the very things we cling to for meaning are the chains that keep us from living fully? So I ask you again, if you let go, if you dared to stop worrying about what others think, if you release the need for control, what would be left of you? Who would you become when the mask finally slips? And more importantly, are you ready to find out? You feel trapped, but not by iron bars or locked doors. No, your cage is invisible, woven from expectations, fears, and the silent pressure of a world that demands conformity. This is not just personal suffering. It is a psychological condition embedded in the human experience. You were raised to believe that success is earned through effort, that happiness comes from achievement, that self-worth is measured by how others see you. But what if these beliefs are not only flawed, they are dangerous? What if they are the very mechanisms that keep you disconnected from your true self? The philosopher Carl Jung warned of this, that we live under the influence of archetypes and social conditioning so deeply ingrained that we mistake them for our own desires. He called it the persona, the mask we wear to fit into society, the version of ourselves crafted for external approval. Over time, this mask becomes so familiar that we forget it was ever a choice. We begin to confuse our role with our identity, our performance with our truth. And when we finally look inward, we find only echoes of who we once were, buried beneath years of adaptation and pretense. Friedrich Nietzsche saw this even more clearly. He argued that society thrives on obedience, on the suppression of individual will in favor of collective order. To him, the pursuit of control, stability, and external validation was not strength. It was weakness disguised as virtue. Madness is rare in individuals, he wrote, but in groups, parties, nations, and epochs, it is the rule. In other words, the madness is not yours alone. It is systemic. You have been conditioned to seek meaning in things that were never meant to fulfill you, to chase goals that do not belong to you, to fear failure not because it defines you, but because it threatens the illusion of control you've built your life upon. Even Viktor Frankl, a man who endured the horrors of a concentration camp, observed that the greatest suffering does not come from hardship itself, but from a lack of meaning. In Man's Search for Meaning, he wrote that those who survived the camps were often not the strongest or the luckiest, but those who found purpose in their suffering. And yet today, many suffer without meaning, not because they lack pain, but because they refuse to question why they endure it. They cling to roles, titles, and routines, not because they bring fulfillment, but because they offer the illusion of structure in a chaotic world. This is the hidden problem. You have spent your life constructing an identity based on external validation, mistaking comfort for truth, and fearing change more than stagnation. You have convinced yourself that control equals safety, that approval equals worth, that success equals happiness. But deep down, you know the truth. You are not truly living. You are surviving within the boundaries of a life shaped by forces beyond your conscious awareness. And now, the real question emerges. If you strip away all the masks, all the roles, all the expectations, who remains? You live in a world that rewards control, applause, and certainty. You are taught to plan, to predict, to prepare, to build a life that looks stable from the outside. But beneath that polished surface, something is eroding. The consequences of living for others, of clinging to control, of fearing failure. They do not announce themselves with alarms or warnings. They creep in silently, shaping your reality in ways you may never consciously recognize. Consider this. Every time you suppress a desire to fit in, every time you silence your voice to avoid conflict, every time you mold yourself into what others expect, you are not just compromising. You are reshaping your brain. Neurologically, repeated self-censorship rewires your mind to equate authenticity with danger. Over time, your nervous system begins to treat self-expression as a threat, triggering anxiety, confusion, and even physical symptoms like fatigue or chronic tension. What feels like personal weakness is, in fact, the biological consequence of years spent denying who you truly are. Cognitive biases reinforce this trap. Confirmation bias leads you to interpret every success as proof that your performance is working, while dismissing inner discontent as irrelevant noise. The sunk cost fallacy convinces you that after investing so much time, effort, sacrifice, it would be foolish to change course now. And social conditioning ensures that you measure your worth against external standards, mistaking conformity for belonging and approval for love. But here's the deeper truth. The price of this illusion is not just internal suffering. It manifests in the world around you. Look at society. How many people chase careers they don't love, stay in relationships that drain them, pursue goals that were never theirs? This collective disconnection breeds apathy, resentment, and a quiet but pervasive emptiness that no material gain can fill. We have built institutions, industries, and entire cultures on the premise that you have spent your life believing that control is strength, that approval is validation, and that success is measured by external standards. But what if true freedom does not come from mastery over your circumstances, but from surrender? What if the answer is not in trying harder, but in letting go? This is the rebellion, not against society, not against others, but against the very beliefs that have kept you trapped for so long. It begins with a radical act, detachment, not indifference, not abandonment of all things, but a conscious decision to stop allowing external forces to dictate your worth, your choices, or your happiness. Michel de Montaigne understood this centuries ago. From his silent tower, he watched the world obsess over status, certainty, and control, and he chose instead to retreat inward, not to escape, but to discover. He found that the only way to truly live was to release the desperate need to shape reality into something predictable, to stop fighting against the current of existence, and instead learn how to swim with it. So how do you begin this rebellion? How do you break free from the invisible chains that have bound you for so long? First, you must confront the illusion of control. You were taught that if you work hard enough, plan carefully enough, follow the right path, you will be safe. But life does not operate on guarantees. No amount of preparation can shield you from uncertainty. No amount of self-sacrifice can ensure lasting approval, and no amount of effort can force the future to unfold exactly as you wish. Control is an illusion designed to keep you distracted. You have spent your life chasing control, approval, and certainty. You built your identity around roles, expectations, and the desperate need to be seen. But beneath all of it, beneath every mask, every performance, every carefully curated version of yourself, there has always been something untouched, something unshaken. A presence that does not seek validation, that does not fear failure, that does not need to prove its worth. That presence is you, not the version of you shaped by years of conditioning, but the raw, unfiltered essence that exists before thought, before fear, before the need to be anything at all. It is the part of you that watches as thoughts come and go, that sees the masks without becoming them, that knows, without needing to explain why, that true freedom was never something to be earned. It was always here, waiting for you to stop running from yourself. This is the deepest truth Montaigne understood. Detachment is not about withdrawal or rejection of the world. It is about returning home to yourself. It is realizing that everything you have ever needed, the clarity, the peace, the courage, has never been outside of you. It has only been buried beneath layers of fear, expectation, and false necessity. And now, standing at the edge of this realization, you face a choice. You can continue clinging to the illusion of control, believing that happiness lies in perfecting your circumstances, in gaining more approval, in shaping the world into something predictable. Or you can let go, not with resignation, but with understanding. With the quiet confidence that comes from knowing that who you are does not depend on how things turn out, that your value is not tied to success or failure, praise or criticism, love or loss. Because here is the paradox. When you stop trying to control life, you finally begin to live. When you stop seeking validation, you finally hear your own voice. When you stop fearing change, you finally discover who you are beyond all the roles you have played. Letting go is not an end. It is a beginning. It is the moment you stop defining yourself by what you do, what you own, what people think of you, and instead, step into the vastness of simply being. It is the moment you stop asking the world to make you whole, because you finally understand that you already are. So ask yourself again, who would you be if no one was watching? Now, answer, not with words, not with stories, not with explanations, but with silence, with presence, with the quiet certainty that whatever arises next, you do not need to earn your place in this world. You belong here simply because you exist. This is not just philosophy. This is liberation. And now that you have seen it, you can never unsee it. So take a breath. Let go of the rope you have been holding for so long, and step forward, not into certainty, not into guarantees, but into a life that is truly yours. Because everything starts to go well the moment you stop worrying.